Hello.
Hello, family. Welcome to Hear Us Out.
Hmm.
I'm Renee,
I am Kyrie.
and the first thing I would like to do is to say thank you to all of those who have subscribed to our YouTube Hear Us Out.
Hmm.
I also want to say thank you to those who have been able to listen, and to bear through the things that we have said and the things that we've discussed.
Hmm.
And I also want to say thank you to those who have left comments and shared out some of their thoughts with us as well.
Hmm.
And so we just want to say thank you.
Thank you. And this episode, a lot of the previous episodes has built upon
Mhm.
themselves.
Mhm.
We've talked about, how Afrocentricity is the base
Mhm.
and how you use that to, well, how we think you should use it to
Mhm.
extrapolate the definitions of things like power and faith, and how uh, the idea in itself, the
Mhm.
idea of Afrocentricity in itself, relates
Mhm.
to other people,
Right.
in particular white people,
Right.
and what they mean to us,
Right.
in that particular philosophical context. But in this episode,
Mhm.
we are going to we are going to try to see something else
Mhm.
through that lens.
Right.
We are going to try to understand um, try to understand um, the world of Invisible Man,
By Ralph
by
Ellison.
Raphael Ellison through those lenses, to because it is important to be able to use
Mhm.
what it is that you are hopefully
Mhm.
learning
Right.
here, and being able to apply it in in, like, if you are going to use, are going to try to understand your world,
Mhm.
you know, through this particular lens, it's not something that you should take off. You know,
Correct. Correct.
it is something that you need to use all the time.
Right.
You know, so.
And I think I've talked about this a few times,
Mm.
in particularly with family and other and with friends, is that you know what we do.
Yeah.
Uh, this is how we operate on a daily. It's not as if, okay, well, we do our homeschooling and then that's it,
Mm.
like we do homeschooling and then there's something else. No, this is pretty much what it is
Yeah.
all the time.
Mm.
You know, our long discussions, the readings, just just how we interact, and engage, you know, in life in general. We use the things that we have discussed. So it's not just this. It's not a hat
Yeah.
for us that we simply put on and take off. It's pretty much
And
how we operate.
we tested,
Yes,
and we tested
constantly. Yes.
by engaging in
Mhm.
fiction
Right.
more than anything,
Mhm.
because fiction is when you read it correctly, if you're actually reading it and trying to engage with the material, it is about putting yourself in another world,
Right.
in someone else's shoes, in
Mhm.
someone else's context, and being able to
Empathize.
empathize and
Mhm.
understand through that,
Mhm.
and being able to apply it to yourself,
Right.
being able to apply it to your worldview.
Mhm.
So you're not trying to force in a particular structure
Mhm.
on what it is you're reading. You're really allowing it, you know, to uh, you're really allowing it to say what it wants to say
Mhm.
through itself.
Right.
You're not adding, you're not taking, you're just simply trying to understand.
Mhm.
And for a lot of people, just in the world in general, I think that we kind of understate the value
Mhm.
of fiction,
Right.
because we don't see it as very uh, intellectually challenging. You know, People always look at fiction as a form of escapism, as trying to go somewhere else,
Mhm.
and that it doesn't really apply to anything else. That it's just fluff,
Mhm.
really. Whereas I tend to think the opposite.
Yeah, particularly with a writer such as Ralph
Yeah.
Ellison, who has probably written the greatest piece of fiction ever, you know, and it's always in the canons. Even I'm not talking about like the canons of others,
Mm-hmm.
just where you know those of us who are into African American literature or Black literature, period,
Literature.
literature, period,
Yeah.
you know, Invisible Man
Yeah.
is there. And for me, I've shared out a few times that I do my power rankings for books and different things of that nature. And, I have my top three, like the all in all, the greatest, the power, the power ranking. And I have Don Quixote,
Mm-hmm.
number one.
Yeah.
And then I have Invisible Man. And I have Arrow of God
Yeah.
by Chinua Achebe. And so I'm actually delighted that we are going to
Mm-hmm.
tackle, Invisible Man. And I've mentioned before that when I first read the book many years ago, that I knew that I would not be able to teach the novel, I would say, in a traditional high school setting,
Mm.
because I think the book warrants so much that 60 minutes or 50 minutes in a classroom setting just could not, you know, truly allow.
Mm.
And so I've taught, different chapters and
Yeah.
different things like that from the book and extrapolated, that way. But I've never, taught the entire book until
Yeah. The
homeschooling.
homeschooling.
And we worked up a couple of years before we even read
Yeah.
that. And what it did for us, I think it was, again, it was almost like perfect timing when we read the book together, and just really with a fine tooth comb really
Yeah.
deal with those ideas and what it is that Ellis is
It's
trying
it's
to
it's
say.
it's the type of book that warrants that type of attention.
Mm-hmm.
That I would say needs that type
Type
of
of
attention.
attention.
That going in here half cocked, a lot of the ideas
Mm-hmm.
really won't resonate.
Right.
I mean, you would. I'm not saying that you can't read
Right.
the book.
Of course. Of course.
It's just that I think there's so much that is relevant
Mm-hmm.
about this story,
Yes.
just in and of itself,
Mm-hmm.
that like we can talk about this, like this could be the only book we ever talk about for
Right.
the rest of our lives,
Right. Exactly.
and it'll still
Mm-hmm.
have something. It'll
Mm-hmm.
still be something.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why
Yeah.
we feel that it is pertinent to engage in fiction, and that's why we've chosen
Mm-hmm.
Invisible Man to be the first fiction
Yeah.
that we engage with,
Mm-hmm.
because it does warrant that type of attention.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that through, you know, trying to analyze and evaluate what's happening, the ideas behind these things, that you develop a better appreciation for
Mm-hmm.
the work and for what is actually, trying to be said,
Right.
as far as we know.
Right.
We didn't write the book, so we can't really speak to intent,
Right.
but we can speak to those things we have taken from it.
Right. Correct.
And so, to begin with,
Mm-hmm.
we read the prologue, chapter 1 and chapter 2
Mm-hmm.
of this book, just to dip our toe back into it before we,
Right.
dive back in fully. And there are some things that we want to go over.
Mm-hmm.
And would you like to begin?
Well, one of the first things that I gleaned from, particularly from the prologue,
Yeah.
and it deals with, who you are in your existence. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
And I put, you exist only as much as others allow you to exist.
Mm.
Okay? And that is not an existence at all. When you attempt to force your existence on those who have no vision to see you, as chapter on page 4 of the Invisible Man, I literally quote, you strike out with your fist, you curse, and you swear to make them recognize you, and alas, it's seldom successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that alludes to, the first question
Mm-hmm.
that I wrote down, when just the first idea that popped into my head, which the very first sentence of Invisible Man is, I am an invisible man.
Mm-hmm.
That is the very first sentence.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately, what popped into my mind is, well, what makes him invisible?
Right.
You know, and he goes into it. He talks about how he's not a ghost,
Mm-hmm.
or a specter. The thing that makes him invisible is that other people can't recognize him.
Mm-hmm.
That, in his words, when they approach me, they see only my surroundings, themselves, or figments of their imaginations, indeed, everything and anything except me.
Mm-hmm.
So when people look at him,
Mm-hmm.
they only see, a reflection of themselves,
Yes,
a
correct.
reflection of the things that are pertinent to them. They are never able to truly recognize who he is.
Right.
So when I ask, so the answer being, what makes him invisible? Well, it's everyone else.
Mm-hmm.
It's the fact that no one else is able to recognize him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I think that begs the question. Well, is he truly invisible?
Mm-hmm.
Because to me, the only thing that will make him invisible is if he wasn't able to recognize himself,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that particular idea is never, at least from his standpoint,
Right.
is never something that he addresses.
Right.
It's never something the invisible man addresses.
Right.
He always talks about his invisibility in context of others, or when other people
Mm-hmm.
can't see. And like I said when I was talking about faith, is that other people can only understand you through their context,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So in that sense, we are all invisible because no one is ever going to be able to understand you like you,
Correct.
right? And if they would, try to understand you, to make a valiant effort, then then they would have to extend their worldview to your worldview instead of trying to impose
Correct.
their
I was about to say
worldview
that,
on
right.
you.
Right.
They would need to understand how you see things and
Mm-hmm.
how you see yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But the invisible man, he never really gets to that.
Right.
The only thing that makes him invisible is the fact that other people seem to be unable to recognize him.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it's like, well, that's everybody. That's everybody.
Right.
Everybody's in that place.
Mm-hmm.
So is everyone invisible according to the invisible man? Well, I don't think that that's the case.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Obviously there are those who can see, right? Like he talked about uh, the homeless, not the homeless man. Yeah, I think he is homeless. The homeless man that sold him the lights.
Okay. Yeah.
That he has vision. That this man is able to recognize him on some level.
Mm-hmm.
We could go back, go to that part. I think I underlined it.
Is it on page 7 you're talking about? About
No,
my
right
whole-
here. Yeah, right here. Page 7.
Mhm.
A junk man I know, a man with vision, has supplied me with wire and sockets. And I took that to mean that, well, this must be a man who can see, who can see him,
Mhm.
unlike the rest of the sleepwalkers, as he describes
Right.
them.
Mhm.
And I just, that leads me to a question, to my second question.
Mhm.
Well, is he invisible? Is he truly invisible? Is he invisible just because no one is able to recognize him? Right. And for me, it's like, well, no,
Mhm.
because that's the place that everyone is in. No one can truly recognize you. No one can truly understand you because you're you,
Mhm.
and the pathways that you walk to become yourself are the pathways that you walk, and no one else can truly understand what it means to walk that way.
Mhm.
We can try to equate certain things about themselves in the world to your path and to what you went through, but it it won't marry itself
Mhm.
the way you are able to describe it and the way you have walked it.
So the protagonist who feels that he is invisible,
Uh huh.
well, what is it that makes him invisible?
Yeah.
Right?
It's just
Uh,
everyone else.
is everyone else, and is it that everyone else does not see his blackness
Well, I think it's his blackness that makes him
and
invisible,
invisible? Okay?
right?
Is right. And so, with that thought in mind, how is it that the protagonist is defining his own blackness?
Well, how's he defining his blackness?
Mm-hmm.
As invisibility.
So the thing is that if he is defining it as invisibility, right, and he feels that those who see him as invisible, right? That's how they respond.
Well, not that they see him as invisible,
Mm-hmm.
but they see him as as a reflection of themselves, of the
Okay.
things around them.
Mm-hmm.
They aren't able to truly recognize him. Is
Mm-hmm.
that it's not that he's not seen, is that he's unrecognizable,
Okay.
and
Mm-hmm.
that in place of him they put what best services their story, their path,
Mm-hmm.
you know. So instead of being able to recognize him as
Mm-hmm.
a being unto himself, they can only see what what he means to them, and in a very particular
At the
moment,
moment, right?
you know. So my question is he invisible? Is the invisible man invisible? And and for me, it's like if no one can recognize you, then that doesn't make you invisible. That makes you human.
Right.
The only thing that can make you invisible is you saying that.
Right.
Is you saying
Mm-hmm.
that I am invisible, and that's what he does in the
Right.
very first sentence.
Mm-hmm.
He says
Yes.
that I am the invisible man.
That's how he has decided to, I guess, define himself.
Yes.
Right. And we see that, I guess, in the incident with the mugger. Do we see
Yeah.
how it is that when you have taken on
Where he's become.
where he's
You know.
become invisible, and he becomes, I guess, like the mugger, even though technically he doesn't even mug the man, but that's how it's described, I guess, in the paper when the man get hurt or whatever the
Yeah.
case may be, and he gulps, he laughs at that description, because he says, well, that he's not, he's not a mugger.
Well,
But if you have made yourself invisible, that's what you said.
invisible in a very particular context, in
Right.
the context of being unrecognizable.
Right.
Hmm.
So in that case, well, that's what he is then.
Yeah.
He is whatever others, I guess, perceive him to be.
Of his own volition,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Because he says that I am the invisible man,
Mhm.
right? What makes him invisible is everything around him. Is
Mhm.
that no one is able to recognize who he is,
Mhm.
right? And I will understand that. I could somewhat understand that mindset, but like I said, you're not invisible until you say you are,
Mhm.
and you walk with it, and you own that,
Mhm.
and that's what he does in the very first sentence. So you can't have it both ways.
Right.
You can't say that you are what everyone else makes you out to be,
Mhm.
and then also say you're not.
Right.
Then you can't then not be the mugger.
Right.
And the part of the story that we're alluding to here is like you said, page 4,
Mhm.
when he was walking. I think he was walking off the subway,
Mhm.
and he bumps into this man,
Mhm.
and then this man insults him,
Right.
and that makes him so upset that he grabs the man by his collar, and he
Kicks him, yeah.
screams at him,
Mhm.
to apologize. But
Mhm.
instead of apologizing, the man just gets more indignant.
Yeah.
Then he headbutts him,
Right.
and he's screaming at him to
Mhm.
apologize, and he never does. And he starts kicking him and
Right.
beating him up, and
Mhm.
the man is still cursing him, and
Right.
still,
That's right.
screaming at him.
Mhm.
And then he pulls out his knife,
Mhm.
and he's about to stab him
Yeah.
with the knife,
Cut him in
when
the
he
throat,
says that,
right?
when it occurred to me that the man had not seen me actually, that he, as far as he knew, was in the midst of a walking nightmare,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
That he wanted recognition,
Mhm.
from this man,
Right.
right?
You wanted acknowledgement.
To see
Right.
that whatever situation you found yourself in is not the situation that I put you in. I'm not doing this to you,
Mhm.
right? I'm not doing this to you. Apologize.
Right.
And this man, it was like, no,
Mhm.
you are doing this to me.
Right. Yes, you have me by the lapels.
You are
right.
doing this
right.
to me. You bumped into
to
me,
me, right.
you know, and that categorized him as something that he wasn't,
Mhm.
you know, and he wanted this man to apologize to him for that.
Mhm.
Don't make me into something that services your story.
Mhm.
You want an apology. You cursed me. Having no understanding of who I was.
Mhm.
You know, so he wanted to be recognized when,
Mhm.
and then he was about to kill this man
Yeah.
before he realized, just right at that moment that that he was that he was in this man's world.
Mhm.
That of course this wasn't happening to him. You weren't doing it to him, and he was doing it to himself.
Mhm.
Right? That was the problem at the beginning, but then it becomes the realization
Mhm.
that he is living a nightmare.
Right.
A nightmare of his own creation, a figment of his own imagination, a specter from his own perception
Mhm.
is attacking him.
Right.
A literal, imaginary friend,
right.
has popped into his world.
Right.
And he's living this nightmare
Mhm.
with no true recognition of what is actually happening.
Mhm.
At least the intent of the invisible man,
Mhm.
right? And what makes what makes me confused about, well, not confused,
Mhm.
but what I think contradicts him, the invisible man's logic here, is when he doesn't kill this man.
Right.
He lets him go, and
Mhm.
he walks away with this understanding. And I think he's upset and kind of crying, but then he ends up laughing
Right.
at how at how
I know it's at the end where he talks about in the Daily News beneath the caption stating
like
that
like
he had been
then
mugged.
like I said, then I was amused.
Mhm.
Something in this man's thick head had sprung out and beaten him within an inch of his life. I began to laugh at this crazy discovery. Would he have awakened at the point of death? Would death himself have freed him for wakeful living? But I didn't linger. I ran away into the dark, laughing so hard I feared I might rupture myself. The next day I saw his picture in the Daily News, beneath a caption stating that he had been mugged. Poor fool, poor blind fool. I thought with sincere compassion, mugged by an invisible man.
Mhm.
Trapped in nothing. Really.
Mhm.
That. So
So is he saying that even on the brink of death,
hmm,
he would be like he would not be recognized for who he is, even even when it's all, even when you're close to death, that these people, the person that
yeah,
he
the
attacked,
sleepwalker.
yeah, the sleepwalker, will not acknowledge you, will not, at least not recognize who you are.
Well,
Well,
that's the contradiction.
mm-hmm,
Is that you say in the very beginning that
that
you are an invisible man,
right?
right?
Mm-hmm,
That your entire life you've been invisible,
mm-hmm,
but that you haven't, your entire life you haven't walked in that awareness, not until now.
mm-hmm,
Now you're walking into awareness of your invisibility.
mm-hmm,
You understand it now.
mm-hmm,
And if your invisibility is that no one can recognize
mm-hmm,
for what you are,
right,
right? That everybody just puts their their perception
mm-hmm,
onto you, their dream onto you,
mm-hmm,
right? With no true knowledge of who you are, then the question is, well, who are you,
right,
right? Well, we know who you are.
mm-hmm,
You said it right at the beginning. You are the invisible
mm-hmm,
man.
right.
Well, if you're the invisible man, and you are whatever anyone
You
else
just
makes you
about
out to
to
be,
So
then how exactly are you not the mugger?
right?
How are you how is the man blind then?
Mhm.
If you have, how is he blind if you are invisible?
Correct. Yeah.
You know,
Mhm.
and if you say that you are invisible, you know, in the very beginning, you own it, you say it,
Mhm.
right? That you've been invisible your entire life, and no one can recognize you,
Mhm.
right? Then you then have to say what you
You
are.
are.
Tell me what you are.
Right.
Well, you did that. You say
Yeah,
you're
you're
invisible.
invisible.
So you are a mugger.
Yes.
You are
You are whatever
whatever the sleepwalker
what's
makes you
yeah
out to
to
be.
be right.
Whatever dream,
right. Right.
whatever
Mayor.
nightmare,
Right. So yes.
whatever idea
Mhm.
people make you out to be, that's exactly what you are.
Right.
Because you yourself have said that you are nothing,
Well, that you're invisible.
that
Correct.
you're invisible.
Right.
Well, I won't say nothing.
Nothing. Right.
Because he makes a very big emphasis of saying that he has form,
Yes.
that he has form. It's just that he does not have a face, in a sense.
Mhm.
You know, he doesn't have a an identity,
That's a good yeah.
and and that's where I think the contradiction lies.
Mhm.
You know, because if you say you're invisible, if you say you're invisible,
Mhm.
you know, then you tell me, you know, but you're invisible only because other people can't see you,
Mhm.
then you're not invisible.
Right.
You know,
But isn't this one of the I guess one of our glaring issues and problems, and that is that we we walk this line,
mm,
right, where we are this contradiction, or we walk with this type of duality of two-ness,
yeah,
and I think that's what Ellison is pulling from, is that at no time is he ever just one thing.
mm,
It's always it's always something else,
yeah,
and he leaves. I think he leaves that to the reader to try and to define. And the thing is that black people, I would say, in this case, is that at least is that we can't be defined, you know. And so, at least I would think that what he's getting at is that, you know, yes, he is invisible,
yeah,
right? And so, you know, he is these, he are what that he is those perceptions,
yeah,
and he's also not those perceptions, because he has defined himself, as invisible.
yeah.
So,
So he is.
and he is not.
In what way is he not?
Well, I'm saying for him, for for the for the protagonist,
Yeah.
because he says that he's invisible, that he's not a mugger, even though he's described as a mugger.
Well, he
We
never
know.
says that he's not a mugger, right? He never says he's not the mugger.
Okay.
But he laughs at being
Call
called
a
that,
mugger.
a
Fair
mu-
enough.
a mugger.
Right.
That's the form he's taken.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even though he didn't,
He-
by definition,
Shit.
mug him. He didn't
That's
try
right.
to steal anything
That's
from
right.
him. But in that context, if you say that he's leaving himself up for us to define him,
Well, no, I'm just saying that that's how. Even though he says that, yes, in the very first line, that
Yeah.
he is invisible, so boom, he has defined,
yeah,
defined himself immediately.
yeah,
But what he, I guess, hasn't taken into account yet, at least so far, is how is it that others define the invisibility, as we say.
well, for others he's not invisible. For others he's a mugger.
Fair
For
enough,
others
right.
he's whatever they make him out to be.
Mm-hmm.
It is his recognition of that makes him invisible. That allows him,
Yes. Mhm.
to be invisible.
Mm-hmm.
But and what I'm saying is that if you recognize yourself,
Right.
which is the only thing that you can ever do.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, other people won't be able to recognize you. That's
Yes.
kind of the point,
Right. Right.
you know, of
right.
you being able to recognize
Recognize
yourself, you know. And if you say that you are, you know, an invisible man,
Mm-hmm.
then yes, you are the mugger.
Yes.
Then no, there are no sleepwalkers.
Right.
Then no, the man isn't a poor blind fool.
Mm-hmm.
You know, then that's what you are.
Right.
You are a mugger.
Right.
You have said pretty much that you are a fixture in other people's stories.
Right.
Right? That's who you are. Then yes, that's who you are. You can't have it both ways.
Right.
You can't say that you are the invisible man, right? But then you're not a mugger.
So I'll ask from this when he says, sometimes it is best not to awaken them. I guess talking to sleepwalkers here. There are few things in the world as dangerous as sleepwalkers. I learned in time, though, that it is possible to carry on a fight against them without their realizing it. So, well, why is it that...
Well, if all of reality lies in their vision. If they don't see it, then I guess it's not happening.
Right. So how is it that you carry on a fight against them without their realizing it?
You don't.
Well, yeah. Right.
You don't.
Right. Right.
You know, like I said, if reality is perception,
Right.
then you must be perceived. Right? That's what makes me invisible, is that you are imperceivable. Right? So if your fight is also imperceivable, then it's not happening.
Right. There is no fight.
Yeah.
At least not with them.
At least not as far as they're concerned.
Right.
That's the only thing that matters.
That is right.
You've
Correct.
defined yourself
Right.
by how they see you, or at least their inability to do so.
Right.
Right? You've defined yourself as that.
Mhm.
So
There is right.
if they don't see your fight, if they don't realize you're fighting, then you're not fighting.
Say it again, please. Because that goes a little. That goes way deeper. It goes way deeper. Right. They don't even. Like you're fighting. At least you think you're fighting. But they don't even recognize it as a fight. They're not fighting against you. It's whether or not fighting at all. As far as the sleepwalkers, I guess.
So what is in this particular part of the story, he elaborates on how his fight is against the monopolied light and power company. That if I can read back, I use their service and pay them nothing at all, and they don't know it. Oh, they suspect that power is being drained off, but they don't know where. All they know is that according to the master meter back there in their power station, a hell of a lot of free current is disappearing somewhere in the jungle, into the jungle of Harlem. The joke, of course, is that I don't live in Harlem, but in a border area. Right? He talks about, but that's his fight, siphoning off power from the monopolied power and light company.
What does that? I mean, what does that allude to?
Yeah.
You know.
Well, you tell me.
You know, the siphoning of power from others. You know, trying to get your power back, I guess. You know, and how was it that you get your power back? You try to manipulate and force. You know, you try to do this by force, but you do it in such a way that they don't easily recognize it.
Yeah.
And so that's been a proverbial thought of ours for a while. That for us to attain, to get power, right, is for us to
take it back.
Is to take it back from them.
Yeah.
And to take it back in a way, successfully in a way to where they don't even recognize that their power is being taken.
No, I would say that we want to take their power in such a way that they fully recognize that their power is being taken.
Yes. But the thing I'm just talking about in the context of how the protagonist here is defining it, and he has a lot of quiet steps, and we're gonna get to how he does those things. But yes, we want to take it back in a way that shows that yes, we have taken it. You know, before. And
when he talks about this light that he's stolen from, that he's siphoning off from the power company, he says that that I love light. Perhaps you think it's strange that an invisible man should need light, desire light, love light, but maybe it is exactly because I am invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Light confirms my reality, gives birth to my form.
Mm-hmm.
A beautiful girl once told me of a recurring nightmare in which she lay in the center of a large dark room and, and felt her face expand until it filled the whole room, becoming a formless mass, while her eyes ran in bilious jelly up the chimney. And so it is with me. Without light, I am not only invisible, but formless as
Mm-hmm.
well. And to be unaware of one's form is to live a death. I myself, after existing some 20 years, did not become alive until I discovered my invisibility.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. So his invisibility is a type of form, right? And under the light, this light that he's stealing,
Mm-hmm.
you know, that's not his,
Right.
he is able to have form. Without it, like you said, you know, he's he's living a death. He's living a death without form,
Mm-hmm.
right? So what gives rise to his form? Well, he says it at the very end. What makes him alive?
Mm-hmm.
What makes him not live a death? I myself, after existing some 20 years, did not become alive until I discovered my invisibility. Until he discovered his invisibility.
Mm-hmm.
Until he was able to recognize in himself
Mm-hmm.
that he was unrecognizable. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So that lends to this question. What is he? Right? If is he equating invisibility to blackness?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I wasn't alive until I realized
Right.
I was black.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Is that what he's doing? Is that what he's doing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think it'll be a safe bet to say yes.
Yeah.
But nothing in the story so far, in the chapter so far, suggests that's what's happening. His invisibility comes from recognition, right? Like he said, like the very last
Yeah.
sentence, his invisibility, well, at least his life comes from his recognition of his self as being invisible.
And he can only see.
Wait, as invisible.
Right. And he
Yeah.
can only see himself, his form, through someone else's
Light.
light,
Hmm.
through a light that is stolen. It's not even of his.
Or maybe not,
Well.
because he says that he's not alive until he discovers his own invisibility.
Mm-hmm.
Until he discovered his invisibility.
Yeah, but he discovers it through this.
You know.
In this light, in this basement
Mhm.
that he's in. So it's when he's at the bottom
Mhm.
that he truly discovers who he is.
That's it.
And even in that discovery, it's through a light that's not even of his own.
Hmm. And it's the very next sentence.
Uh-huh.
That is why I fight my battle with manipulated light and power. The deeper reason, I mean, it allows me to feel my vital aliveness.
Mm-hmm.
His little victory that no one recognizes,
Mm-hmm.
that doesn't exist according to the logic of the book.
Mm-hmm.
This thing that doesn't exist, this victory is a figment of his own imagination.
Mhm.
It's invisible,
Right.
so it's not there,
Right.
right? And that's the only thing that makes him alive. Is that it's this assumption that they even see that power is being siphoned away to some place in Harlem, but he's not in Harlem. Oh, that's
Right.
that's the big thing, is that his only victory comes from in his assumption that
That's right.
he's baffled
Right.
manipulated light and power.
Right.
When
And then
most
not
likely manipulated light and power doesn't even know,
Right.
hasn't even realized.
Right.
Like they don't even care.
Right.
Like it's not like what? No,
No.
it's probably not even registered on the meter.
Right.
You're in one place.
And you're in a particular, and I think how he describes the building is that it's a really nice building.
Yeah.
And I think
That rents exclusively. To
yeah,
whites.
to white people.
Yeah.
So that's where the light is going. And you think they're going to recognize that light is being stolen in this beautiful building that's occupied by all these white people.
Mm.
Mm, well,
Yeah.
yeah. And again, that he can only see himself, through this light that he steals
Mm-hmm.
from someone else. So even in that case, he is still sort of defining himself
Mm-hmm.
through someone else's lens.
Lens. You know, like
Mm-hmm.
the truth is the light, and light is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what he.
That's
That's what he
literally
says.
right. Right.
The truth is the light. Light is truth. Now
Yeah.
what? Now what does a light give him? I have written down here, in my notes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because we have our notes, right?
Mhm. We are addicted to action. Action in a particular form,
Mm-hmm.
right? Light equals form. Form equals action.
Mm-hmm.
Action does not equate to light, right? You are addicted to the external,
Yes.
to that external power
That's
that we
right.
talked about,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And that external thing can only exist if other people recognize it as that,
Right.
right?
That's literally your life here. That's literally what he is saying.
Is trying to be recognized, or trying to have, or taking victory in the fact that they do recognize defeat, right?
Okay. Yeah.
That's how you extrapolate your victory, by having them realize that you have baffled them, that you are beating them. That's where your victory comes from.
Mm.
Now, tell me, where's the monopolied power and light company?
Mm-hmm.
Are they going anywhere? No,
No.
they're still right there.
Mm-hmm.
Where's his victory? Where's your victory? Oh, in the basement of
That's
some,
right.
in the basement of some building that you're, squatting in.
Right.
And all these lights that you got. I picture like Christmas lights.
Yes.
And stuff that
Yes.
you
I
got
picture a whole bunch of bulbs here. Right.
all over the wall.
Mm-hmm.
All over the ceiling.
Mm-hmm.
1,369 lights. That no one can see.
Right.
Right?
Right.
So even according to your own logic, you're not winning. Right? You can see it, and you make the assumption that they can see it, but most likely they don't. And that's the assumption.
That's the assumption. Right.
Is that they can see it.
Right.
Light gives you form.
Right.
Form gives you action. Action does not give you light.
Right.
Right? What are you doing? You're stealing the light from somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Stealing the power from someone else.
And they don't even.
And that's the thing. Well, if you're doing that, if you're stealing the power, then it's not yours.
See how that works?
Right. That's why you got to steal it.
That's right.
Because it's not yours.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
But you say that you're not alive until you recognize your own invisibility. That's you casting your own light.
Mm-hmm.
You have given reason to your invisibility.
Right.
No one else.
Right.
Right?
They don't see you.
Yeah. Well, they do see you.
Well, yes.
They do see you.
Right. They see you.
And you have chosen
right.
then to be
right. How they see
invisible.
You. That's right.
How they see you.
Right.
Right?
Mm-hmm.
So tell me, well, who are you? Who are you then? Right? Where's your victory?
Right.
Where's your name, invisible man?
Right.
What's your name?
Right.
Who are you?
Right.
There's at no part of the book that we learned that.
Mm-hmm.
Who you are. Well, the only thing you've shown me is that you're a parasite. Siphoning power from someone else. Squatting. And it's like, if you are invisible in this world, then maybe you can become visible in your own.
That's right.
But in your own world, you've chosen to be invisible. You've chosen to squat in the basement.
That's right.
And steal light from some power line.
Right.
That they got running into this building.
Right.
And talking about how you're hibernating.
Right. Yeah, he lived. That's
right.
the word
That's
he
the word he uses.
Right.
That he's Call me Jack the Bear.
Right.
For
Right.
I am in a state of hibernation.
Hibernation. Right.
You're hibernating for what? To do what? To be what? Invisible, right? To cast light on yourself. Then, for them to you're hibernating so you can get to a point to where they recognize
Right.
what you have been doing.
Right.
If your power lies in their recognition, then you have no power. Then then you will forever be invisible. Your invisible is not blackness.
Right.
That's not what your invisible is not blackness.
Right.
Your invisibility is your choice.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you've chosen, you resigned yourself to be invisible.
Yeah.
And at some points, like in his own logic, he both does and does not recognize it. Like any person, he falls back and forth between saying that I'm invisible because I say I am, or I'm invisible because no one can see me, right? Or no one can recognize me.
Right.
So it just goes to show that the only time that you are something is when you are something to yourself, right?
Right.
If you have to steal it, then it's not yours.
Mm-hmm.
Go off and create something that is yours
Right.
for you,
Right.
with what you have.
Mm-hmm.
So then you don't have to steal anything.
Right.
You don't have to take anything at
Right.
that point. You make it for yourself. And
Yeah, but doing that means that you have to acknowledge all the way, and in acknowledging that means that you're responsible for it, and as long as the protagonist here is invisible,
yeah, as long as he chooses to be.
right? As long as he chooses to be invisible, well, where does the responsibility actually lie then?
Yeah,
It's always lying outside.
yeah. Then it's never you.
It's, see,
Then
I feel.
when do you get?
Yeah.
When do you get somewhere? When
Right.
do you get to be something?
Right. Okay.
Nah.
And how is it that you want to be something?
Yeah.
Again, it's only through your own actions, it's through your own actions
Yeah.
that can occur.
All right. There's something else that he talks about in his prologue, and
Yeah.
we're still in the prologue. People.
Yes.
And I told you we read the prologue, chapter 1
1
and chapter 2.
Yeah.
We're still in the prologue.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a very particular part of the prologue that I find very interesting.
Yes. Yeah.
That's when he talks about how he listens to music, and
Mm-hmm.
how his invisibility gives him a different, a warped sense of time.
Mm-hmm.
And he talks about how he has this Louis Armstrong record of "What Did I Do to Be So Black and Blue," and how he has like 4 different phonographs,
Mm-hmm.
and that he plays it and he plays his song all at the same time. All at the same time, just to where like it reverberates throughout his warm little home.
Right.
And how and how that song was able to change his perception, at least on how his invisibility was able to change his perception of this song. And he says that invisibility, let me explain, gives one a slightly different sense of time. You're never quite on the beat. Sometimes you're ahead and sometimes behind. Instead of the swift and imperceptible flowing of time, you are aware of its nose, those points where time stands still, or from which it leaps ahead, and you slip into the breaks and look around. And so that, his invisibility keeps him out of sync with everything around him. He's always a little bit behind or a little bit ahead, seeing where the record skips,
Mm-hmm.
where time,
Mm-hmm.
pauses, where time falls out of itself
Mhm.
in a sense. He's able to recognize these things, and he also talks about this the uh, the prize fighter, versus the yokel,
Yes.
right? How this prize fighter was following his own rhythm, his own scientific beat.
Mhm.
He was beating up this yokel,
Mhm.
beating this man up, and how when the yokel ends up winning the fight,
Mhm.
he lands one good punch, lays him out,
Mhm.
and he said the smart money lost that day. I think that's
Yeah.
his exact words, because all the Yoko had to do to win the fight was fall into the prize fighter's rhythm, right?
Mhm.
That's exactly what he did, and he got one good punch, and that's all it took.
Mhm.
And so I think that's how he's categorizing his understanding. It's falling into rhythm with the things around him, being able to follow that rhythm,
Mhm.
and in doing that, being able to recognize, where it is and where it is not. And so, well, he talks about when he listened to this song, he was on reefer. It was
Right.
weed. Yeah,
Right.
he was smoking reefer at the
Right.
time, his one and only time doing it.
Uh-huh.
It was kind of by mistake. He wanted a cigarette,
Right.
or
Right. Right.
weed, and he went back to his warm hole.
So basically, falling in line, right? Being able to, I guess, catch the rhythm, fall in at the right place. If you fall in at the right place, you too can land the punch
Mm.
and win.
What? Mate,
Maybe,
right?
right? And so for us, reading this,
Mm-hmm.
I think he is speaking, you know, speaking that language to those who actually feel that way.
Yeah.
Particularly at the time in which this book was published, is that so much we think that a lot of our success comes in with catching the rhythm
Mm.
and falling in line. And when you fall in line and catch the rhythm, boom, you can hit the success too.
Yeah.
But how many? Well, of course, but he's going to delve into
Yeah.
how that's
So
really not the case.
let me begin. And this is, I think, my favorite part
Yeah.
of the whole thing that we read yesterday. That So under the spell of the reefer, I discovered a new analytical way of listening to music. The unheard sounds came through, and each melodic line existed of itself, stood out clearly from all the rest, said its piece, and waited patiently for the other voices to speak. That night I found myself hearing not only in time, but in space as well. Not only entered the music, but descended, like Dante, into its depths.
Mhm.
And beneath the swiftness of the hot tempo there was a slower tempo, and a cave, and I entered it, and looked around and heard an old woman singing a spiritual as full of Welshmers as flamenco, and beneath that lay a still lower level on which I saw a beautiful girl, the color of ivory, pleading in a voice like my mother's as she stood before a group of slave owners who begged for her naked body. And below that I found a lower level, in a more rapid tempo, and I heard someone shout, "Brothers and sisters, my text this morning is the blackness of blackness." And a congregation of voices answered, "That blackness is most black, brother, most black. In the beginning, at the very start," they cried, "there was blackness. Preach it." And the sun, Lord, was bloody red, red. Now black is, the preacher shouted, bloody. I said black is, preach it, brother. And black ain't, red, Lord, red. He said it's red. Amen, brother. Black will get you. Yes, it will, yes, it will. And black won't. Now it won't. It do, Lord, and it don't. Hallelujah. I'll put you, glory, glory, oh my Lord, in the whale's belly. Preach it, dear brother, and make you tempt. Good God Almighty, hold on, Nelly. Black will make you black, or black will unmake you.
Mhm.
Ain't it the truth, Lord? And at that point, a voice of trombone timbre screamed at me. Get out of here, you fool. Is you ready to commit treason? And I tore myself away, hearing the old singer of spirituals moaning. Go curse your God, boy, and die. I stopped and questioned her, asked her what was wrong. I dearly loved my master's son, she said. You should have hated him, I said. He gave me several sons, she said.
Mhm.
And because I loved my sons, I learned to love their father, though I hated him too. I too have become acquainted with ambivalence, I said. That's why I'm here. What's that? Nothing. A word that doesn't explain it. Why do you moan? I moan this way because he's dead, she said. Then tell me, who is that laughing upstairs? Them's my sons. Be glad. Yes, I can understand that too, I said. I laughed too, but I moaned too. He promised to set us free, but he never could bring himself to do it. Still, I loved him. Loved him? You mean, oh yes. But I loved something else even more. What more? Freedom. Freedom? I said. Maybe freedom lies in hating. Nah, son, it's in loving. I loved him and gave him the poison, and he withered away like a frostbit apple. Them boys would have tore him to pieces with their homemade knives. A mistake was made somewhere, I said. I'm confused, and I wish to say other things, but the laughter upstairs became too loud and a moan-like for me, and I tried to break out of it, but I couldn't. Just as I was leaving, I felt an urgent desire to ask her what freedom was, and went back. She sat with her head in her hands, moaning softly. Her leather-brown face was filled with sadness. Old woman, what is this freedom you love so well? I asked around the corner of my mind. She looked surprised, then thoughtful, then baffled. I done forgot, son. It's all mixed up. First I think it's one thing, then I think it's another. It gets my head to spinning. I guess now it ain't nothing but knowing how to say what I got in my head. But it's a hard job, son. Too much has done happened to me in too short a time. Hits like a have a fever. Every time I starts to walk, my head gets to swirling and I falls down. Or if it ain't that, it's the boys. They gets to laughing and wants to kill up the white folks. They's bit 'em. That's what they is. But what about freedom? Leave me alone, boy. My head aches. I left them, feeling dizzy myself. I didn't get far. Suddenly one of the sons, a big fellow, 6 feet tall, appeared out of nowhere and struck me with his fist. What's the matter, man? I cried. You made my cry. But how? I said, dodging a blow. Asking her them questions, that's how. Get out of here and stay. And next time you got questions like that, ask yourself. He held me in a grip like cold stone, his fingers fastening upon my windpipe until I thought I would suffocate before he finally allowed me to go. I stumbled about dazed, the music beating hysterically in my ears. It was dark. My head cleared, and I wandered down a dark, narrow passage, thinking I heard his footsteps hurrying behind me. I was sore, and into my being had come a profound craving for tranquility, for, pe- for peace and quiet, a state I felt I could never achieve. For one thing, the trumpet was blaring and the rhythm was too hectic. A tom-tom beating like heart thuds began drowning out the trumpet, filling my ears. I longed for water, and I heard it rushing through the cold mains. My fingers touched as I felt my way, but I couldn't stop the search because of the footsteps behind me. He rise, I called. Is it you, destroyer? Reinhardt? No answer, only the rhythmic footsteps behind me. Once I tried crossing the road, but a speeding machine struck me, scraping the skin from my leg as it roared past. And somehow I came out of it, ascending hastily from this underworld of sound to hear Louis Armstrong innocently asking, what did I do to be so black and blue? At first, I just want to finish. At first, I was afraid this familiar music had demanded action, the kind of which I was incapable, and yet I had lingered there beneath the surface I might have attempted to act. Nevertheless, I know now that few really listen to this music. That was, that is
Right.
absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah.
That whole little part right
Yeah.
there. That's in the prologue.
Yes, that's the prologue.
Just in the prologue.
Right. So what is it that you want?
What makes him so black and blue?
Yes.
What did he do to be so black and blue?
What are you confused about? What is your confusion? Do you know what you want?
Freedom.
That's what you said.
That's what she said.
That's what she said.
She wants freedom, but every time she thinks about it,
it gets all mixed
it's
up.
always one thing, something
Yeah,
else, this and that.
So what is it?
Well, the external world will do that to you.
Yeah.
When you don't realize that freedom is something you can only give yourself. You know, you killed this man that you love for what he had did to you, for what he forced you into becoming.
Right.
Like you said, I understand.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
I understand.
Oh, yes.
But it didn't make you free,
No.
right? And your sons didn't make them free.
That's right.
Freedom lies in hating. Nah, freedom lies in
I
loving.
love it.
Well, freedom doesn't lie in either of those things.
That's right.
Freedom lies in you.
Mm-hmm.
Freedom lies in what you choose to be.
Right.
But if you can't make the choice, if you're waiting for something,
Yeah.
for some action to
give
make
it
that choice
for you.
yeah, to make it so, then you'll be waiting.
Yes.
Nothing will ever give that to you. And you'll be sitting there confused, your head thumping,
Mm-hmm.
you know, just like him,
Yes.
in and out. And you know, to call back to that sermon that the preacher gave to his congregation,
Mm-hmm.
you know, his blackness is a curse and a blessing
Mm-hmm.
that traps him in the belly of the well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, with Jacob, if I remember correctly.
Is it Joe? Or
It's not Job.
It's not Joe.
I think it's Jacob.
I don't think it's Joe. It's one of them.
It's one of them.
It's one of them. Right.
One of them biblical figures
Yeah,
that got
they got
swallowed
swallowed up by the whale.
by the
right.
fish.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're not thinking about him right now.
But yeah,
Yeah.
you've been swallowed up. You've been swallowed up by something completely outside of your control. It's put you right there. What are you going to do?
Right.
Who are you then?
That's right.
And he says, get out of here before you do something treasonous. Are you going to
Yeah.
commit treason?
Right.
Right? Why? Because you'll throw it all back if you could.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You throw it all back. Black and red. Black and blue.
Yes.
You know, what did you do?
Right.
I'll tell you what you did. Absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
This world does not need your consent. Your blackness does not need your consent.
That's right.
It's right there.
It's there.
You have to choose now who you're going to
Want
be with it.
That's right.
Who are you going to be with
Right.
it? Are you going to be delusional?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to try to bleach yourself? You know, try to lighten up your skin tone to try to get rid of it?
Right.
You know?
And even in that, there is no escaping. There was no escaping.
Well, that's the choice you make.
Yeah. Well, but
You've
yes,
made your
you
choice
made
to
your
try
choice.
to escape.
Yes, but
Right?
yeah.
You've done everything in your power to try to get out of the whale's belly.
Mm-hmm.
You can't.
Mm-hmm.
You can't escape. It's impossible.
Mm-hmm.
That's who you are. It is
Mhm.
with you, no matter what.
What? Mm-hmm.
Right? Don't commit treason. And get out before you ever think about doing so.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
And what is that treason?
What is that treason? You're trying to get out the whale's belly. You're trying your hardest.
Does it matter how you get out the whale's belly as long as you get out the belly?
Mm.
So we think
It does matter.
it does matter. That's the thing. Is that I
You
get
try so hard to get out. You trying everything.
yes,
Trying everything. But guess what? You ain't going nowhere, bro.
right.
You are in
Yes.
the whale's belly.
Mm-hmm.
Your blackness puts you there.
Yes.
It makes you, and it will unmake you.
Yes.
Who are you then? Right? Are you going to be someone who tries desperately to get out of that whale's belly?
Mm-hmm.
Either you need to destroy the whale, or destroy will put you there, and that's your blackness.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
The whale ain't going nowhere.
Yes.
And your blackness, sure as enough, ain't
You're
going
going
nowhere.
nowhere. Right.
So what are you going to do? Right? Have you been condemned to this world? Or are you going to make it something else?
Right.
You're in the whale's belly. Ain't no escaping that.
Right.
What do you do now?
Right.
Who are you now?
Yes.
Well, you have to make your world in that whale's belly. You have to make it something. You have to make it something. Right?
Mm-hmm.
And we, if I remember correctly, Jacob set a fire inside of the whale and made it cough him up.
Yeah. I
Oh,
think,
or was that Pinocchio?
I don't know about that.
Either way,
I don't know.
yeah.
In any case, we know that the whale does regurgitate.
Yeah,
Coughs up.
yeah.
Is it?
Is it not? I'm pretty sure it's Jacob.
It might be.
I might be.
Sure the name.
Like, I might
I'm
be a
so
quick.
worried
It might
about
just be
that.
because Jacob is a biblical sounding name, and I'm just choosing that name.
Y'all sure about?
I-
Y'all hit us up and let us up and
Yeah.
take him a joke.
Either way,
Right.
it's what you do inside the whale that dictates how you're going to get out.
That's right.
If you ever do get out.
Right.
Getting out, guess what?
Yeah.
It's just another whale.
Yes.
You're going to be in the belly of something else.
And you have to be who you.
And who you and who you are in that whale
Right.
is who you need to be when you get out.
That's right.
Right?
Right.
there's no escaping
Right.
in a conventional sense.
Right.
That well isn't going anywhere. Your blackness isn't going
Not
anywhere.
anywhere.
You have to be in spite,
Correct.
in
Right.
spite of all of these things
Mm-hmm.
around you. You haven't been condemned
To
to
anything.
anything.
That's right.
You condemn yourself,
Self.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah,
Yeah.
hallelujah.
Yes.
That's my favorite part.
Yes, it is. It's really good. You know.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
and
Yes.
that's the prologue. But there's some other things we could talk
Yeah,
about
of
in there if
course.
we want
Because
to.
I mentioned
So we
I
can,
had I put up that cause I just writing some notes and I put
Mhm.
that the invisible man is in a hole because it is what he has dug for himself.
yeah.
Okay? And that he thinks that he can see himself only in his hole,
Mm-hmm.
right? But he has distorted his own vision, even in this light,
Yeah.
because he's in a hole, regardless of how bright it may be.
Yeah.
You know, and so when you're there, and your vision is even distorted in your hole,
Mm-hmm.
in your well, okay?
Yeah. And the whale's belly.
Yes, you know how would how are you operating then? Are you actually are you operating truthfully if your vision is so distorted?
Mm.
It's always this. It's this outside
Yeah.
that's always it dictate. So if that's all
If it's
that
the
your
whale's belly that dictates your reality
yeah,
and how you ever get out of it.
in a nutshell.
Yeah.
And then you have to ask yourself, those questions. Well, you know, how do you get out of it? Do you want to get out of it? Do you recognize that? Do you feel that you can get out of it? And if you do, how do you operate? How do you get out of it?
Mm.
And if you think that getting out of it means to, I don't know, steal the light, steal lights in
Yeah.
the basement and
And
all those
to
things.
go back for a moment, and this is another point that I think he addresses, that he talks about, and
Mm-hmm.
about his hole,
Right.
right? And he said,
What
my
page is it?
page 6.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He said, my hole is warm and full of light. Yes, full of light. I doubt if there's a brighter spot in all of New York than this hole of mine, and I do not exclude Broadway or the Empire State Building on a photographer's dream night. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But that is taking advantage of you. Those two spots are among the darkest of our whole civilization. Pardon me. Our whole culture.
Mm-hmm.
An important distinction I've heard. Which might sound like a hoax or a contradiction, but that, by contradiction I mean, is how the world moves. Not like an arrow, but a boomerang. Beware of those who speak of the spiral of history. They are preparing a boomerang. People still helmet handy. I know. I have been boomeranged across my head so much that I now can see the darkness of lightness. And I love light. Well, that's so good when he goes into the invisible thing.
Uh-huh.
When he talks about, like I said, contradictions.
Right.
He sees the darkness of lightness,
Mm-hmm.
right? The darkness in the light. And how these places, which are the brightest in our culture, are actually the darkest,
Mm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And what makes them so dark?
The light.
That the light does not give rise to form.
Right.
That's all it is. That's all it is. It's just light.
Mm-hmm.
But there's nothing in that light to be given form.
Right.
It's just blindness.
Yes.
It's just the dream,
Yes. Yes.
right? And obviously, when he talks about the spiral of history,
Mhm.
which is, I think we've touched on before, is that his time is not an arrow; it's a boomerang.
That's right.
Like we talked about last night, how
Like history isn't I know we've come to think of history as this linear thing. Point. It moves in a straight line. But history isn't this one straight dot to dot line.
yeah,
That it's all over. It's not just this one thing. And what happens is that when you try to make it this one thing,
mm.
and you keep finding things that fall out of line.
Yeah.
Okay, that's when the confusion starts, the dogma,
Mm.
the
Tradition.
yeah. That's
Mm.
the yeah. I was trying not to. Yeah, that's where
Yeah.
that comes in, and then you start to put your line up, your tradition, I guess, your line
Yeah.
up against something else, and then of course those lines they do not converge,
Yeah.
and so then
And there are a lot
yeah
of little contradictions throughout the entirety of the prologue, and I
yes
think that that word, contradiction, is one that best defines exactly what this prologue is.
mm-hmm.
When we talked about how his being contradicts who he says he is.
Right.
You know,
Well, yeah.
and how
Mm-hmm.
he wants to illuminate. What he said, this compulsion to put invisibility down in black and white, be thus an urge to make music of invisibility.
Mm-hmm.
Like to try to make the invisible visible, right? Another contradiction in form, right? And but then we get to the
Yes.
last chapter,
Yes.
which
The last paragraph.
the last paragraph,
like
yeah, the
you
last
said.
paragraph, yeah,
Mhm.
not last chapter.
Mm-hmm.
We get to the last paragraph, which might be the most like up there with the dream,
Yeah.
like the most poignant thing in there. And
Uh-huh.
I think I've read enough.
Okay, so I'll
Yeah.
read final paragraph
Yeah.
of the prologue. I can hear you say, "What a horrible, irresponsible bastard," and you're right. I'll leap to agree with you. I am one of the most irresponsible beings that ever lived. Irresponsibility is part of my invisibility. Any way you face it, it is denial. But to whom can I be responsible, and why should I be? When you refuse to see me and wait until I reveal how truly irresponsible I am. Responsibility rests upon recognition, and recognition is a form of agreement. Take the man whom I almost killed. Who was responsible for that near murder? I? I don't think so, and I refuse it. I won't buy it. You can't give it to me. He bumped me. He insulted me. Shouldn't he, for his own personal safety, have recognized my hysteria, my danger potential? He, let us say, was lost in a dream world. But didn't he control that dream world, which, alas, is only too real? And didn't he rule? Yeah, but didn't he rule me out of it? And if he had yelled for a policeman, wouldn't I have been taken for the offending one? Yes, yes, yes. Let me agree with you. I was the irresponsible one, but I should have used my knife to protect the higher interests of society.
Wait.
I should have used my knife to protect the higher interests of society. Someday, that kind of foolishness will cause us tragic trouble. All dreamers and sleepwalkers must pay the price, and even the invisible victim is responsible for the fate of all. But I shirked that responsibility. I became too snarled in the incompatible notions that buzzed within my brain. I was a coward. But what did I do to be so blue? Bear with me.
Delicious.
Yes.
And like I said, I bracketed that entire last
yes,
part.
yes, yes, yes.
And I have written it
And
down.
I have
here.
it underlined, right?
The final paragraph.
Mm-hmm.
Why we don't move.
That's right.
That final paragraph
Mm-hmm.
is why, like when we talked about faith, why people fall short
Mm-hmm.
of our measure,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because we hold other people to our standard before we hold ourselves, right? That's what religion is, and that's why we said religion needs to be faith,
Right.
because your faith is you, your religion is everything else, right? And this is what he talks about, how he's irresponsible, and then he blames this man.
Right.
He blames this man because he bumped into me, as if he's anything to be bumped into.
Right.
As if you're anything to be bumped into.
Right.
Right? Where were you? You weren't in your hole when you got bumped, so where was that light to give you form? You were nothing then. You were living a death.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Right.
You were living a death.
You were invisible.
Visible. Right? But he bumped into
Into
you.
you.
He insulted you.
Right.
When you yourself are nothing.
Right. That's what you said.
You are exactly what he says you are.
That's right.
Right? How can you not be invisible man?
Mm-hmm.
Right? How can you not be?
Mm-hmm.
That's why we're here.
Right. The invisibility makes you irresponsible. But like I said so many times,
Mm-hmm.
once you acknowledge it, you are responsible for it. So you have
Responsibility rests upon recognition.
That's right.
And recognition is a form of agreement.
That's right. So you have recognized that you quote unquote.
You've agreed.
That's right.
You've agreed.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're falling short
Yes.
of the deal.
Mm-hmm.
You
Of
are falling short of the deal.
So you can't blame.
Well, you're falling short.
Right.
And it's his fault.
That's right.
It's his fault because he didn't see you.
Right.
Because he bumped into you.
Right.
Because he insulted you,
Mm-hmm.
the invisible man.
Right.
Which the very first sentence is perhaps the greatest insult in
Right.
literary history.
Right. Because you aren't.
You're not.
Right. Even if you say that you are. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Even in saying that you're invisible. The mere fact that he bumped into you, right?
Mm-hmm.
What does that mean?
What does that make you?
Right. And if you're
Well, according to him,
mm-hmm.
makes you a mugger. According to the West Indian man that bumped into him.
Right. So once you acknowledge that you are invisible, right?
Hmm.
That means that you are responsible for whatever comes with that. You are responsible for whatever comes with being invisible.
Hmm.
You are.
You are.
So when someone bumps into you,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And they don't, I guess,
See
you.
You.
Remember, you just said that you were invisible.
Remember, you're invisible.
That's right. So it's you at that point
It's you.
that's in control of that situation.
How can you not be?
Yeah, you just said that.
If you're invisible, tell me
Right.
how.
Right.
Tell me how you're not.
Right.
This,
See? Yes.
this like this question is like one that we've asked in the mirror throughout. Like, remember in the last episode,
Yes, yes.
if you lost, and how
Yes.
how is it still yours if you lost?
That's right.
You know,
Yeah,
how
that was the
all
one that
these
everyone
things.
was like,
That's
how
it.
dare, that's right, you lost.
It's the same.
Right,
Like
it's
it's
the
the same
same
thing
thing
here.
here.
You're invisible.
Right,
So how is it? So what is owed to you?
right.
How can he insult
Oh,
you? How can you even be bumped into?
That's right.
Right? If you were bumped into him, if he bumped into you,
Right.
since you're a part of his dream, then it must be divine providence.
Correct.
It must be fate
Mm-hmm. Yes.
at that point. Because you are a figment of his imagination. Right?
Mm-hmm.
You were there to be cursed at. You were there to be bumped into. You were there to be insulted as long as you're invisible.
Right.
As long as you choose it. Right? Because in reality, you're not.
Right.
Not even to yourself.
Yeah, because even in your life, well, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so see.
See?
See how they
You're
go?
not invisible.
No.
You're not invisible.
Right.
What you are is irresponsible.
That's it. That's the word I want. I knew. That's it. Yeah, I knew you were looking for something else. I was going to just blurt it off. I'm about to blurt it off just that quick.
Like I was thinking about, like I was gonna say,
I'm about to blurt it.
I'm about to
You're
say
irresponsible.
different words,
No.
different things.
No, but we'll keep it
I'm
right
like,
there.
yeah,
No,
I'm like,
No.
because you're being, I was thinking ignorant.
no, you're
Thinking-
being
I was
irresponsible.
thinking stupid.
No.
I was, just
Yes.
all those things. But I was
Yeah.
like, you know what?
No, irresponsible. We'll keep it right here. Yes.
You are being irresponsible. I think that's
Yes.
the perfect word. For
Yes, because I was literally about to blurt out. See what you said? I was like, see, I was just about to say it. That's what it is.
irresponsible.
And that's on you.
It's on you.
That's on you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my word.
That's very good, Ralph Ellison.
Like I said, it's It's one of I,
And
the
that's the
look.
prologue.
That's the prologue.
That's
The
before
prologue.
we get into
Chapter one.
chapter one, chapter
right.
two.
And the pro. And I remember, like, for the first
When we
time
first read it,
together.
the prologue was the thing we spent the most time on.
Yeah, we spent the most time because we felt because once we got this,
Yeah.
we were good to go.
Mm-hmm.
And we talked about the prologue. I think maybe just as long as this, or maybe even longer.
Yeah.
I think when we first read it together, and so you have to define you.
Yeah.
And you are responsible for that. If you have defined yourself as an invisible man,
Yeah.
then you are responsible for whatever comes along with that.
Yeah.
You can't be invisible and irresponsible for what that comes.
Yeah.
That doesn't make.
You can't be invisible and insult.
Yes.
You can't be invisible and not be a mugger.
Right. You're whatever you're perceived to be.
Yeah.
And if you are the mugger, then that's what you're whatever they say that you are. And
Whatever services the story.
Whatever service, that's sir. And we're going to see how he is serviced in all the subsequent chapters.
What part he played.
That's it, right.
Like I say, he has the Dr. Manhattan problem.
Yes. Right.
You know, from Watchmen. If you've ever read that. We might read that on here.
Yeah.
But all this power.
Mm-hmm.
All this power and no control.
Correct.
The only thing that ever gives you direction is the pull of everything around.
Mm-hmm.
It's never you.
Right. You're stifling the light. You're in the hole. You know.
You are siphoning the light, right?
Mm-hmm.
You're siphoning the light from everyone else, but failing to produce your own.
See how that works?
Their
See
light,
how that goes?
their
See how
light,
that goes? Right.
their light
right.
can give you form.
Right.
Can give you form.
Right.
Their form.
Yes, right. But it can't give you.
But it won't make you you.
You. That's right.
You have to be you. You have to create your own life.
Right. And whatever situation that you are in, be it, the belly of the whale.
And that's where you are. That's where we all are.
Yeah. You have to, at every one of those points, you have to define who you are.
Uh-huh.
And what works for you in that belly.
Because that dictates how you're going to get out. If you're going to get out.
Yes.
Because you think, you could scratch your claw.
Right.
You just end up right back there.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're getting out. Well, no, you've been in the well the entire time.
Yes.
The well is an immense beast. The largest on earth.
Yes, right.
You're getting lost in there.
Yes.
And it's funny to talk about well, because at first we talked about reading over there.
Yeah, but
we said it on the Digital Man, mainly because we could find it.
Yes, I do have my book. Yeah, I have my books.
You got books all over the place,
right?
Packed up. And we were like, so where's Moby Dick? And we're like, no, what? We're going to read it Digital Man. That's probably a better place to start.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I feel as if, Ellison has been talking to us for a long time.
Yeah. And this book is a very daunting thing. And not a lot of people read it. Or, they read it in school.
Yeah.
And, and they coming at it from just, I want to read it and get the lesson done.
What's the theme? What's the plot? What's the setting? And the characters?
And they don't really, engage with it.
Yeah, like I said, that's one of the reasons why I didn't teach the book.
Yeah.
When I was a high school teacher, is because I knew that I couldn't engage the way that I really wanted to with something like this. So yeah.
Yeah. And
so that's the prologue.
That's the prologue. I think we're going to tackle chapter 1 and 2 in another video.
Yeah.
Because we got
so lost. As a matter of fact, we might do more than just those two. When we get into the book proper. Mm-hmm. And we might just tackle that later on. Yeah. Because this has been the prologue. Yes.
And I said yesterday that the prologue might be the part.
Right.
But yeah. So if you feel inclined, you might want to read along.
Yes.
Get a copy of The Man.
Mm-hmm.
Read the your prologue, the first 2 chapters.
Right.
And
what is it that you all see?
Yeah. And if you do read the prologue, what is it that you take away from it? Because I will say that our first time when we first read it, we took something entirely different away from it than us reading it this time.
Right.
So yeah. What do you think about his dream, about his warped perception of time?
Distortion.
His distortion. And is Is his invisibility is his invisibility his blackness?
Hmm.
Is that what he alluding to? Just tell us what do you think about
Right.
Invisible Man? Do you agree with that? Do you disagree? If
Hmm.
so, if
Let
you
us
agree,
know.
tell us why.
Yeah,
If you
hear us
disagree,
out.
tell us
Yeah.
why. And yeah,
Until next time.
until next time.